Mitcheldean is a small town in the north of the Forest of Dean. It was a thriving community for many centuries, as it was a producer of iron, as well as, more uniquely, cloth and leather. The town has many old timbered houses and narrow streets. It was once known as Dean Magna, and was originally a small hamlet at a major crossroads. During the 19th century, Mitcheldean grew due to revenues produced by the local brewing industry, while in the 20th century the town grew further due to the rank Xerox photocopier factory. Although this industry significantly declined during the latter half of the 20th century, much of the former rank Xerox site is now occupied by small businesses, new manufacturing and distribution businesses. There are several shops in the centre of the town, a cooperative store, a butcher, a greengrocer, several hairdressers, a pharmacy, a florist and several fast food outlets. There is also a library, a surgery, 2 pubs and the town hall. The medieval church of St Michael and All Angels, with its fine spire, lies at the heart of Mitcheldean. It is a place of living worship today, and retains much of the art and craftsmanship from centuries past. Dating from at least the 13th century, the Grade 1 listed church building is home to 8 bells, which date from the 1700s. But the bells have been silent for several years because of structural issues with the spire. However, earlier this year, approval was gained for a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund to make the spire safe and allow the bells to be rung once more. Until structural issues halted use, an enthusiastic band of ringers held a weekly practice and rang for services, including weddings. Once the remedial work is completed, the band of ringers will be able to resume their activities and begin to teach those interested in learning, as well as hosting visiting bands from the wider region. From the church, I followed a lane, which led to the edge of the playing fields. Going through a gate, I followed the footpath, turning off left up the hill. Well, I spent about an hour or so wandering around Mitcheldean, and whilst I was there, I met some really lovely, friendly people. Quite a few passed me and said good morning, and a small number of them actually stopped and had a bit of a chat with me, which was lovely. I have to say that there was one old guy who was really sweet, and he was telling me all about the church. But one thing he did say to me was regarding the recent national news where there were some kids trapped in a cave that was flooded in Thailand. A couple of the rescuers were actually from the Forest of Dean, so that's a real great claim to fame for the forest. Anyway, this walk I'm doing now is quite exciting for me because even though I used to come to Mitcheldean years ago when I regularly visited the forest, I don't think I ever really did a walk from Mitcheldean, so this is a whole new experience for me. The path climbed on up Winsman Hill, where I got great views over Mitcheldean and beyond. Continuing straight on, ignoring a path to the right, I soon came onto a track. The track led to a lane, where I turned right. I then left the lane again as I took a path off to the left into a forest enclosure. The path went in a straight line and gradually descended. After a short distance, there was a path approaching sharply from the left, so I turned off here to follow it. I'm going to do it. I could do all my own stunts, you see. The path eventually joined a broad forest track, which ran alongside the edge of a water treatment works. Just beyond it, there was a junction of paths, where I bore left to follow a path straight on through the trees of Mitcheldean Inclosure. Soon I crossed the Mitcheldean to Drybrook Road, as I headed southwest along another broad forest track. The countryside eventually became more open as I continued along the track. To my right, the village of Drybrook lay below, and ahead of me there were good views across the valley to Ruadine Hill. The path emerged onto a lane as I found myself in Harrow Hill, a settlement which is joined with Drybrook. Originally, the village was known as Harryhill. Harrow Hill has its own football club, which can be found at the end of Larksfield Road, and is easily located by the floodlit towers that stand on the corners of the main pitch. The main route that divides Harrow Hill is Trinity Road. This links the village to Drybrook and the A4136 Gloucester to Monmouth Road. I turned left along this road to follow it to my next port of call. The village church, Holy Trinity, was opened in 1817 and is known as the Forest Church. It serves the communities of Drybrook, Brierley, Steam Mills, Bailey Lane End, Ruadine Hill and Harrow Hill. The church is built of grey stone with a short tower. It is relatively unadorned, with the interior whitewashed and enlivened by the odd commemorative plaque and some cheery banners. The only panels of stained glass are in the east window. Part of my reason for doing this particular walk was to visit this lovely church, and I have to say it's really delightful. Well, now I'm going to walk a little bit of the Wysis Way. I walked beside the A4136 for a short way, until I came to a path signposted as the Wysis Way and the Gloucestershire Way. The Wysis Way is a 55-mile long-distance footpath which forms a link between two UK national trails, running between Offarsdyke Path from Monmouth and the start of the Thames Path in Kemble in Gloucestershire. I climbed up through Harryhill Plantation as I followed a little of the Wysis Way. Eventually, the path led onto a lane just off the A4136, where I walked over to Plump Hill Pool. The last time I came to this little pond was over 12 years ago. And the thing I particularly remember about that particular occasion was that the water was completely frozen then. Well, of course, back then it was in sort of like February, March time, so right in the middle of winter. Whereas today I've come back in the middle of July and Well, it looks very different now. As I took the lane leading to the wilderness centre, I continued to follow the Wysis Way, which soon went left along a path. The route of the Wysis Way was not too clear along this section, as I encountered several forks in the path, but no waymarks to indicate which way to take. However, I checked my Ordnance Survey map, which showed the Wysis Way running close to the right-hand side of this forest enclosure, so I kept to paths near to the edge of the wood. Thankfully, the correct route was finally confirmed when I came to another fork, where I turned right on a path leaving the wood, marked by a post with a Wysis Way symbol. I was in open countryside as the path crossed a field and I had great views again. I soon passed near the wilderness centre, where I could see some fascinating stones within its grounds. Carved over 10 years ago, these stones were formed under a heritage project undertaken by a group of young adults then based at the centre. The project subsequently won the Heritage Lottery Fund South West Region Young People Heritage Heroes Award in 2005. There are 7 stones in total, 6 modelled from Portland stone, the 7th carved from forest stone obtained from the Wilderness Quarry, standing apart from the others. The stones are laid out in the shape of a constellation known as the Sculptor's Studio. Continuing along the Wysis Way, I dropped steeply down across the fields as I headed back to Mitcheldean. So I'm just coming to the end of my walk now. I'm heading back into Mitcheldean. So, as I always say, another wonderful walk, but of course on this occasion it's another wonderful walk in the wonderful Forest of Dean.